What's up, everybody? We're back for another episode of Identico After Dark, our evening podcast where we talk about movies and video games and tabletop games and everything that's going on in the world. I am once again joined by Grandpa Joe, who is somewhere in an undisclosed location. Grandpa Joe, how are you doing today?
My bunker.
A bunker?
I wish. I'm doing fine. I've been working out recently, so I'm sore all over, trying to get healthy.
It's that first wave of stuff, trying to get back into it. That's always the hardest.
It's weird. You're like, I'm going to work out to get healthy, and you just feel like shit for like a week or two.
Yes, very much so. I look tired. That is what the chat says. I am tired. So, funny story this week. Going in from last weekend, I had been fighting a headache for like 5 days, and it just wouldn't go away. So yesterday morning, I knuckled under, and I went to urgent care, and for those who don't know, my wife and daughter had COVID, but I continuously tested negative. So I went to the doctor yesterday morning. They tested me for COVID again with their fancy doctor's office tests. And I don't have COVID, but they were looking through stuff, and it turns out, and this is not weird for me because I have a deviated septum, I have another ear infection. So my right ear hadn't been hurting, but it apparently was just messing up everything else in my head for like 4 days, because apparently my right ear is horribly infected. So yes, I've been a little tired because I hadn't been sleeping, and we just been having some issues. I
got a K-bar. We can open it up and take care of that infection.
I'm good. So they put me on some lovely strong antibiotics. No alcohol for me, so they don't, interfere with my antibiotics. But at least I know what's going on now, and it's not the Rona, which is really what's important to me. She imagines it was something like allergies or something, just fluid building up behind my ear. So that is why I look tired. So, but thank you all for noticing. And yes, to answer Angela in the chat, my hair is getting a little long, so I'll go get it cut in a couple of weeks. We've got a good show for you tonight. We've got some fun topics. Joe and I were talking around in the pre-show about some interesting stuff. So we're going to jump right into it. First thing we're going to talk about is some Marvel stuff. We finally, and actually kind of not long before the movie comes out, we got a Thor Love and Thunder teaser.
Yeah, they've been kind of closed lips about this movie.
They have. I remember the first major announcements they made, which was at the San Diego Comic-Con right before the pandemic, when they announced that Natalie Portman would be returning to the MCU as Jane Foster, and they let her hold Mjolnir, and the Hall H crowd collectively rose up in cheers because it looked like we were getting the Lady Thor storyline, and I think that's now been confirmed, obviously, with the trailer. Joe, what were your first thoughts?
I was honestly a little confused about it. So far, with other than the exception of the second Thor movie, they've all been pretty good. I've liked them.
Yeah.
Ragnarok was probably my favorite to date, and I think this is going to have similar kind of tones and themes. It seems a little bit of comic relief mixed in with some kind of serious things, but I didn't get a great impression from the trailer of what kind of movie this is going to be. Is this going to be an action-packed, there's some dark nemesis kind of bad guy movie, or is this going to be a soul-searching movie? They seem to be kind of hinting that it's more of a soul-searching kind of adventure-y type one, but I'm just kind of curious what they're going to do with it. Are they going to throw us a curveball and include some multiverse of madness nonsense happening?
And that's kind of the weird thing about that. We'll come to that in a second because there's some stuff we want to talk about there. But for this one, yeah, I'm with you. I couldn't really tell where they were going because it kind of starts with the funny haha with the stuff where he's doing the CrossFit with the giant chains and the trucker hat. Like Grandpa Joe, Thor's trying to get healthy again. So we see Thor trying to get back into Thor shape. But then we see him reflecting on his childhood, and then we see some jokes with Star-Lord. who rumor has it has a bigger role in the film than everybody had kind of originally thought. That it's not like quick. And then we get the visual of him going and seeing Lady Thor with what looks like the busted up Mjolnir that Hela had destroyed in Thor Ragnarok. I don't know what they're doing. I mean, they're bringing back the team from Thor Ragnarok, so I have high hopes for it. I think it's going to be good. But I don't know what they're doing.
One of my big question marks is how much is the Guardians of the Galaxy going to play a role in this one?
And that's where we're getting kind of some mixed reports on that. Originally it looked like maybe it was just going to be like the very beginning of the movie, but this might turn into a like Iron Man a la Spider-Man Homecoming where they kind of pop in and out. But I'm not 100% sure. Like you said, they're being kind of close-lipped about this one.
I think I saw some rumors. I may be totally pulling this out of my butt, but I think I saw some rumors that the Guardians of the Galaxy arc is almost done with. Like they're just gonna maybe one more movie. I don't know if they're counting this one.
Volume 3 is in the release schedule, so we know we're getting Volume 3.
I kind of wonder how it's going to factor into that. I wonder this is almost certainly it almost has to set up Volume 3, like at least to some extent. But like maybe that's their exit. Like, hey, we're going to go do whatever for Volume 3. Because I mean, the kind of rivalry between Star-Lord and Thor was kind of funny, like when it first kicked off. But I've kind of grown out of it.
Yeah.
It's kind of gotten old. I kind of hope they don't lean on that too hard this time.
Yeah. And again, I'm not sure. I didn't like Guardians 2 as much as I liked the first one. Part of that is I think some of the novelty had worn off. Part of it is I just think the script was a little bit weaker. And it felt like they were really kind of in this place of we don't really at that time they were building to Infinity War. They were building all this other stuff, and I don't think they had a good feeling of where they wanted to go with it.
I felt like 2 was Star-Lord's origin story. That's where they did it so they could show, look, he has actual magic powers too. And then they also threw in at the very end, Adam I think that's his character's name.
Yeah, it's Adam Warlock.
Adam Warlock, but they have done almost nothing. Like they have mentioned nothing about that since then.
They haven't, and I was actually really confused by that because they show the Adam Warlock stuff, and in the comic books, he's super involved in the Infinity War. So when they showed Adam Warlock and they teased Adam Warlock at the end of Volume 2, I figured that Adam Warlock was going to come into play before Infinity War did, and then just nothing.
I was kind of nothing. I don't know enough about. I didn't really get into the Guardians of the Galaxy comics as a kid, so I only know them peripherally. But I really was kind of expecting them to do a Captain Marvel sequel that heavily featured Adam Warlock, because I kind of felt like since they come from two space races that are known to each other, I kind of felt like that might have ended up being the tie-in. But I guess that's not accurate.
I'll be honest. I have no idea. And
I've also heard kind of scuttlebutts that the Captain Marvel sequel is kind of in limbo.
So right now, the Marvels, and I just had pulled this up to reference it. The Marvels is currently slated for February 17th of next year. Now we know we're getting the Miss Marvel show this year sometime, and that will fold into the Marvels movie, I guess. But yeah, again, I don't know what they're doing there either, and I think that part of this is two things, and I want to know what you think about this. Number one, and kind of what you and I were talking about in the pre-show, this to me is the weirdest phase of Marvel movies, because every other phase you knew what they were building to, right? We did Iron Man. We had Iron Man 2. Then we had Captain America, the First Avenger. Okay, we're building to the Avengers. We know what's coming, right? I don't know where they're going, right? Every phase of the Marvel movies ended with an Avengers movie. Now we're kind of in this weird limbo.
I believe, and I thought about this a little bit more after we talked about it on the pre-show. I think they're probably angling towards a Kang the Conqueror as one of the principal bad guys.
Right, and we know he's going to be the principal bad guy in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which
possibly Galactus
is scheduled for next year. I don't think they bring in Galactus until they bring in the Fantastic Four. That's my honest feeling on that one.
I think they're probably gearing up for a Fantastic Four soon. I think there has been some element of secrecy in the Marvel Cinematic Universe where they're not wanting to put all of their cards on the table. I am not particularly a huge fan of the Fantastic Four, which weirdly is probably the group that I had the most exposure to as a kid, because my dad had all of the old Fantastic Four comics from the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And so I would read through them quite a bit. But I'm just not really excited about it. I kind of hope they don't do a full Fantastic Four movie.
I mean,
I think
it's
a
on
TV show.
It's been announced. I think it's weird because we haven't heard anything since the announcement, and that was a while ago. And I mean nothing. Now, obviously, the pandemic goofed all of their release all of their release schedules. But I don't. Maybe we'll know more after Doctor Strange, because I think that's kind of the linchpin of this phase right now, is that until we see what they do in Doctor Strange, because obviously we know Patrick Stewart's in Doctor Strange, we've seen him in the trailer, we know a lot's going to happen. It's a super long movie too. It's going to tie for the second longest after Endgame. I think it's 2 hours. 2 hours and 20 minutes on Doctor Strange.
My gut is saying that they're probably going to idle in the kind of fractured universe for a while. And use that as an opportunity to bridge more IPs of theirs.
Yeah. Maybe?
With a culmination in, a climactic battle between whoever and Kang to try to solidify it or at least eliminate some threats.
Yeah. I definitely think that's possible. I'm spinning around. Chat saying Fantastic Four is in production according to TV tropes. If it is, they're being even more quiet than normal, because usually by the time something goes into full-blown production, and maybe it's in pre-production and previs and stuff like that, usually we have a cast announcement.
I kind of wonder if they're being closed-mouthed about it, because honestly, the last several iterations of it have been hot garbage.
Yes.
So I kind of feel like it's probably smart of them to be a little bit closed-mouthed about it, and hopefully drop a good one. I do, if any studio group is going to make a good Fantastic Four, it's going to be the Marvel Cinematic Universe team.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they've got a lot of inertia against them on that front.
They do. Chat's bringing up Secret Wars. They've announced the Secret Wars show, Secret Invasion, and it's supposedly sometime this year. There will be a 6-episode series with Sam Jackson, Ben Mendelsohn, and Emilia Clarke, Olivia Colman, and Kingsley Ben-Adir. That will be Secret Invasion. I don't know. That's coming this year after Miss Marvel and She-Hulk, I'm actually kind of looking forward to She-Hulk. I think She-Hulk's going to be kind of fun, especially since I like Tatiana Maslany as an actress. I think she's going to be great. Yeah. Chat saying no one is I know is jonesing for Fantastic Four. I think that comes down to what Joe said, is that the last couple have been hot garbage. I mean, last 2 times they've tried this. And
I just never really thought they were that interesting of a group.
They are, but they take a lot longer to build, and that's the problem. Is that I think part of the problem that's been with all the Fantastic Four movies of the past is they always try and jump straight in, right? Part of what makes the Fantastic Four so good in the long run is how much time there is development done on those characters and how much interpersonal development's done between all the members of that team. They're in such a rush to get to Doctor Doom, to get to Galactus, to get to those threats with the Fantastic Four movies in the past, that they kind of like give short shrift to all of it.
Well, I will be happy, and not for any particular reason, just because I think it'd be a cool little throwback to previous films. There has been quite a few rumors that Robert Downey Jr. is reprising his role as Tony Stark in some upcoming stuff.
That's been a consistent rumor.
I think it would be... I would probably be very happy if they did, like in... I forget which movie it was in, but we know when Tony Stark and Bruce Banner are being all scientisty on the helicarrier and doing... If they also included Reed Richards in it and they had like a nerd off...
Yep. That would be fun.
That would be awesome.
That would be a lot of fun. And it's comic books. And, I'm surprised both with this that, no one's come back to life. Because we all know in Marvel Comics, no one ever really dies. Right?
Yeah. A stiff breeze resurrects somebody.
Right. I mean, it's fine. No one ever dies in the comics, okay? Because they might need them later. Stark as a flashback character makes sense, according to the chat.
I'm thinking either flashback or alternate dimension Stark.
Well, and that might be the case with the presumption is the scene that we see Patrick Stewart in, where he's being confronted by somebody, namely Patrick Stewart, in the Doctor Strange trailer, is that he's going to meet the Marvel Illuminati, which at times has included Tony Stark, Professor X, Reed Richards, and at times Doctor Strange. That's the presumption that everybody's got. So, maybe we are going to see, variant version of Tony in the Illuminati from Earth something else or other.
Yeah. We know we have variant Lokis, and we know we have variant Doctor Stranges.
Yep. And you might be right. Maybe they're just going to idle around in the multiverse for a while and see what they can do until they get where they're going. This is very un-Feige-like, though. Kevin Feige has always, since the inception of the MCU, been like, we are planning. So I'll be curious to see where they end up going, because again, it's not apparent right now. I have no idea.
I mean, I would argue that they were kind of idly in the early stages of the MCU too, because we were probably a good 3 or 4 movies in before they really started even kind of hinting in the direction of the Avengers Ultimate Battles.
The Ultimate Battles, yes, but you knew they were building to the Avengers because... let's look at the release list.
Because, I would say that the first Thor and even the second Thor were kind of... did not do anything to drive the plot towards what eventually happened.
No, and I'm trying to remember what the post-credit ones were in that one.
Neither did the first or second Iron Man.
So, Iron Man 2, they were building to the Avengers because he talks to him, and then also at the end of the Incredible Hulk, they're talking about the Avengers Initiative.
Maybe it's 3 I was thinking. 'Cause, 2, that's when they introduced Nick Fury's contributions.
We only had 3, 4, 5 movies before we got to the first Avengers movie, right? You had Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, and Captain America, and then we jumped straight to the Avengers. Then we had 4 more movies: Iron Man 3, Thor: The Dark World, Captain America, Winter Soldier, and Guardians of the Galaxy, and we got to Age of Ultron. Then we had Ant-Man, Captain America. Then we had the biggest gap between Avengers movies, and that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 before we got to Infinity War. Then we had 2 until we got to Endgame, and we are now 5 movies into this newest phase.
Well, I do know the first Iron Man and the first Thor, at the time, and still, because I rewatched both of those in the last month or so, they still felt to me they were very experimental. Like, can we actually do a superhero movie in the modern cinemascape and be very successful?
But I mean, you figure Avengers had to be in production by then, because Iron Man came out in 2008, Thor came out in 2011, Avengers came out in 2012. So,
yeah.
I mean, obviously by the time they released Thor, they knew they were doing the Avengers. Man, Iron Man and Iron Man 2 came out really fast. Those came out pretty much back to back. That was 2008 and 2010. Yeah. That was fast.
But we can also just pretend that Thor 2 didn't exist because it was terrible.
Yes, I would agree with that statement.
The my question is, speaking of terrible, which honestly I didn't think it was that bad of a movie. I kind of wonder what they're going to be doing, if anything, with the Eternals plotline. I
think that they really wanted to do a lot with the Eternals. I'm not sure either. That's a very good question, because
to me, this is another one of those cases where if it didn't have the name of Marvel on it, it would have been a fine movie. But I think because it was a Marvel movie, people expected a lot more out of it than what they got. And I didn't, again, it was way longer than it realistically needed to be. That was one of the big problems. Mm-hmm. But functionally, it was not a bad superhero movie.
No, I thought it was fine. Right? I thought it was fine. It just wasn't great.
Oh, yeah.
It made $400 million. You know, so, and this was in November of 2021 when a lot of people still weren't going to the movies.
Yeah. Well, Tip brings up a point. I really want to know what they're going to be doing with Black Panther.
That's due out this year. So Wakanda Forever is out this year, and yeah, I don't think there's any good way of doing anything with it. And I think that, I think that no matter what they do, you're going to have a lot of people who really don't like it, no matter what they decide.
Well, I mean, I'm concerned they're going to try to CG Chadwick Boseman, at least for part of it.
I mean, they could CG him in the costume, and it wouldn't be a huge deal.
Which, he was in post-mortem, he was in the What If series, but he had recorded all of his lines before he passed. Mm-hmm. So that was, I was like, that's a pretty cool little, send-off for him, I think. It's one of his last works, and he did a great job at it. But I just don't know where they're going to go, because they're going to have to, at least at some point, address that they're either going to recast him and just pretend like nothing happened.
Which I don't, that from my understanding, that's not the plan.
Or they're going to have to explain, somehow how his character died. Or got replaced.
And who's going to be the new Black Panther. Right.
Yeah.
I have no... Yeah. Again, if this was DC, I would say they're running around rudderless. But... but it's Kevin Feige. So, I mean, I got to imagine he has a plan. On the DC side, the only thing that's been going on there is that Discovery, who's buying Warner Brothers right now, since they bought Warner Media, they're talking about basically trying to build a film unit like the MCU. And
they were already doing that.
Zaslav, who's the new CEO, he's trying to find his Feige-like person. I watched a good video on this the other day, and I'm curious. I don't know if you're going to find that very easily.
I don't think you will, honestly. The problem is I don't think DC needs to try to be Marvel, because DC is not Marvel. Mm-hmm. Similar, yes, but tonally, the way they've always presented the comics has always been very different, and I don't think they should try to copy it. Now, I have heard, I haven't actually seen them just because lack of time, I have heard the most recent Suicide Squad was good. Mm-hmm. I had heard that the newest Batman was really good.
I've been meaning to watch that this week.
I've been trying to get to the theater for like 2 weeks to watch it because I kind of wanted to see it in
now
theater,
it's out on HBO Max.
I know. I'm just going to watch it there. I did watch Peacemaker.
I heard that was really good. What did you think of that?
That was fantastic.
Was it?
Yeah. It was... It's a kind of a departure from your standard superhero films in a lot of ways, and they were not afraid to be extremely adult about it. It was definitely R+ rated content.
Okay, I'll take it. Yeah. Speaking of things streaming and HBO Max and all the streamers. Netflix is in the toilet right now. Netflix's stock has dropped by 34% this week on their first quarter of negative subscriber growth.
I would say they've been in the toilet for a while.
We've talked a lot about Netflix on this podcast. All that to say, I don't know what they're going to do to recover. One of the rumors that came out is there's the possibility of adding an ad-supported version of Netflix. And I personally think that's going to go over like a lead balloon.
Oh, it is.
I mean...
People already hate the increase in prices. They're definitely not going to want to add commercials on top of it, even for a lower price.
The second grade unsubscription. They're playing some of it off because Netflix canceled all the subscriptions coming out of Russia, which apparently amounted to about 500,000. So that was apparently quite a bit for them. So again, we've talked about this a bunch of times on the show. They've lost a lot of the non-original content that they've had back to the original rights holders as soon as contracts expire, because everybody and their mother...
Can we re-emphasize that? Because I know probably our reach is not that great on this show, but hopefully people out there see it. Stop saying that Netflix just needs to get back The Office and Futurama, all of them. Netflix did not want to get rid of them. That was not a decision made by Netflix. Oh, the original right owners took it away from them. Yeah. Yes, it would be fantastic if they could get them back, but they're not going to.
No, because the original IP holders are taking their stuff back because everybody and their mother's starting a streaming service. So the more I think about this, the more I think of Netflix like I think of Steam. Netflix is Steam to me. And the reason I draw that comparison is this. You can get some really good stuff on Steam. And most of the time when I'm going on Steam, I'm going either A, to buy something that I already knew about that was coming out, or it's something that somebody recommended to me highly that I can only get through Steam. The majority of the stuff on Steam, neither I nor any other consumer ever sees, because it's uncurated and it's all over the place. There's loads of shovelware and asset flips and crap all over Steam. Netflix is kind of the same to me right now, in that, like, when you see Netflix original programming, it's a crapshoot. It's seriously a huge crapshoot. Some of their stuff is super good. Some of it is hot freaking garbage. You know, and you oftentimes, it would take forever to look for the good stuff, in Netflix's thing. So the only time I go to Netflix is when I'm looking for something very specific.
I honestly can't remember the last time I actually watched something on... No, that's not true. The last thing I watched on Netflix was The Adam Project. Because it's got Ryan Reynolds in it. He can carry a lot of bullshit to make a movie good.
How was that, by the way?
It was pretty good. I'd give it a solid B.
Okay.
It was kind of predictable in a lot of ways, and there was a lot of like tongue-in-cheek or self-referential humor in it. But I mean, it's Ryan Reynolds' film, so of course there is. But it was all right. It was pretty good. But like kind of like you, I don't. The only other thing I've watched specifically for Netflix was Arcane, which was amazing. But when I go look at Netflix now, I've got it on all my TVs, like downloaded and everything logged in. I flip through it occasionally, but half the time whenever I'm looking at it, the mental feel I get from Netflix is like walking into the dollar store. Like, it's all like kind of half-baked, semi kind of knockoff, not name brand kind of stuff, and it just has this kind of like cheesy feel, and I think part of that's because Netflix has spent the last 5 to 6 years just with this let's throw everything at the wall and see what sticks kind of approach to it, and that has resulted in some pretty good shows like Altered Carbon, at least the first season of Altered Carbon.
Yeah, I actually just started watching that this week.
And there's some really good stuff out there. There's also a whole lot of turds, but it just, they don't seem to have any cohesive direction on what kind of content they want to make, which is fine if they want to have a broad spectrum, but they still think they need to put some more stuff through the finer filters than what they're currently doing. Because on the flip side of it, they get shows that are really popular that end up getting canceled for no apparent reason. So it's just kind of like, it really feels a lot of times like they just have a dartboard on the wall and they're just chucking darts to see what's getting funded and what's not getting funded this month.
Well, and so I read an interesting theory about this not too long before the show today. And that's this, is that Netflix as a corporation is so invested in new sub, that they're not looking at sub retention. And it's starting to bite them, and it's biting them now. And how many Netflix shows have suffered the fate of 2 seasons and canceled? Right? Even if they're really good and if they have solid numbers, because Netflix is like, well, after 2 seasons, nobody's buying into the service for this show. They're just staying on the service of the show, and we don't want to waste the money. You know? And so a lot of the theory I read was because they're so focused on new subscriber acquisition and not maintaining subscriber retention, they're actually killing themselves because they're not keeping shows going. Take Altered Carbon. The book series that Altered Carbon is based off of is 3 books. Each season's basically one of the books, and they canceled it after season 2. They were like, yeah, we're done with this now.
Well, season 2 was not very well received, and I'll fully admit I did not watch all of it because it's hard to watch, frankly. It's not nearly as good as the first season, in my opinion. But trying to think. I lost my train of thought.
So I'll give the examples. So they had that Ashton Kutcher sitcom, which was pretty good. I think it's finally been canceled. They had One Day at a Time, which I think is one of the best sitcoms that's been made in the last things, and not enough people watched it. It got canceled after 2 seasons. I'm looking at the chat right now. Sense8, grumble, Sense8.
Reddit had an interesting theory about it today that I saw being repeated a few times in various threads about it.
Okay.
The theory that they have, and I don't know if they really have any backing for it other than tinfoil hat conspiracy, their supposition is that Netflix may be intentionally driving its stock prices down so they can buy back more control from investors. I don't know if I subscribe to that, and also that's like, I mean, yeah, that happens in Wall Street a lot,
but that's not what we're talking about.
It's a huge gamble, and
and they're not going to push it down
being
that
as
much.
Intensive, like cost intensive as it is. That just seems like a bad idea.
So first off, this maintains a downward trajectory. Netflix started the year at $597 a share. They had a really bad dip in January where they got down as low as $359, and they kind of recovered a little bit, but then they kind of bounced it around the $350 range. Right before the drop, they were at $348, which, keep in mind, $348 is still down $250 a share from the beginning of this year. Not all time, beginning of this year. As of the close today, it was at $226. It had lost another 30% in value. It's down 62% year to date.
Well, I mean, all of this just means I can look forward to Netflix being included in my Disney Plus membership whenever Disney buys them.
Yeah. I said, I don't know. I don't buy the tinfoil hat. Not this time.
I don't wholly, like, I wouldn't put it past some people to try it, but I don't think that's necessarily happening here. I mean, so Reddit has also been circulating Netflix's new logo where it's just Netflix inside the old Blockbuster ticket outline.
Yeah. Here's the thing, like, yeah, they held on for so long and they were the first ones, and I think they've lost it. I don't think they're going to go out of business tomorrow, but
I think it'd be a slow dwindle for the next probably decade or so, and then eventually sell out or be bought by somebody.
Yeah, well, I definitely don't think it's going to be Disney. I think Disney's done with that for right now. Because I don't think Disney wants Netflix's infrastructure. Because Disney, when they bought Fox, Disney got the controlling share in Hulu.
Yeah.
So Disney owns how much?
I mean, it would probably be better to go with what does Disney not own. That'd be a shorter list.
Yes. It is majority owned by the Disney company, with Comcast, NBC, Universal having a minority stake. Disney owns 60% of Hulu.
Well, slightly more topical conversation pieces. Disney may not own those two counties anymore.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, let's talk about that. It's not that. So that did pass the Senate today. I have not seen whether DeSantis is going to sign it. So for those who don't know, the Florida Disney maintains a special administrative district in Florida where the Disney World Series of resorts are. Today, the state of Florida voted to eliminate that special district. The cities and counties around it are freaking out because Disney pays for a lot. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot in that state. And it's going to be a
nightmare.
Oh, yeah. So it's expected to go to the Florida House on Thursday. I got to imagine DeSantis is going to sign it if it passes. And I imagine Disney will sue the state of Florida in about 9 seconds. This over Disney's very milquetoast opposition to the Florida Don't Say Gay bill. And they're just even that milquetoast opposition has got the Florida legislatures coming after them. This is going to be wonky. I mean, really wonky for Florida.
I've not seen actual financial figures between the two, but I would argue Disney possibly has more money than Florida does. Maybe, because Florida is pretty high in the economic ranking in the world, not just in the States. But a lot of that's because of Disney.
Yeah. Florida's yearly budget is $92.2 billion. Disney's market cap is $226 billion. Yeah, I mean, you could definitely make the argument that Disney has more money than Florida.
I'm kind of on the. I think the Florida government's kind of being dumb, shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of mixed feelings about it because I mean, it's worked okay for so far, I guess, but it gives me the heebie-jeebies whenever you allow massive corporations to have governmental control over any part of the territory that we live in. So I kind of feel like they should lose it on that ride alone. But on the other hand, I mean, I don't know if Disney's really abused that privilege.
I don't think they have. And this is so the reason people are freaking out in Florida is this. Under current Florida statutes, any municipal bonds that have been passed in the area where Disney currently has the special district, where Disney deals with it, the debts and assets of a special district are dissolved or passed to the municipal government that takes over. What that means is that there are 2 counties and some small cities that are going to take on $1 billion of municipal debt if they dissolve the districts.
Oof. I hope Florida's ready to start signing some checks.
Yeah. I think they may... The state government may get sued by the counties. Jeez. Yeah. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I have to imagine this is going to pass tomorrow. I have to imagine they're going to do stuff. I got to imagine this is going to blow back on them. When is DeSantis back up for re-election? This year. So I wonder what's going to happen. I mean, DeSantis is really betting a lot on this. And if it doesn't play out, he's going to be... I think he's going to be out on his butt. Moving on to lovely video games. We got another Star Wars game announcement today. That brings us up to 5 Star Wars games that are being actively in development, and they're not all by EA. So, yay!
I'm always down for more Star Wars games.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like this is probably going to be of a similar vein, if not a direct sequel to Fallen Order.
So it's a different company.
Yeah, but the pedigree of the company is... I think that's just probably what they're going to gravitate towards.
They said it's a richly cinematic action adventure featuring an original story.
Yeah, so that's another... that's another Uncharted.
Chat says they hope it's an Ahsoka game.
I mean, whatever. That means I don't have to play it. And we talked about it a little bit in the pre-show, but I definitely want to reiterate. I really want them to start making some actual like action-based games where it's reboot Dark Forces, reboot Republic Commando.
Did you play Fallen Order?
I did a little bit. I didn't.
So that was a very Souls-esque experience to me.
Yeah, but I don't want Souls. I want shooters like they were really famous for. Like LucasArts made some awesome shooters. I even liked Republic Commando, and I don't even really like the Republic era stuff. It's something better than Battlefront, which Battlefront did get better over time as they patched it. But let's be honest, it kind of sucked.
Yep. Yes.
I think there's a room in the market right now for a kind of a harder core Rainbow Six-esque Star Wars Rebellion era shooter.
That would be like Rainbow Six style would be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be all this like kind of campy, let's recreate the movies kind of game. Like, give me a more air quote realistic version of Star Wars in a video game format. Because like you have all kinds. Literally, the galaxy has been at war for like 40 years in the current canon. You have lots of material to draw from, and wars are not like happy, colorful, funny things.
No,
like, people get shot in the face in the dark. Give me that.
I I'd like to see it. Right now, the other things are we got the Quantic Dream Star Wars Eclipse, which we've seen the first cinematic trailer for, but we don't know anything about gameplay. But it's Quantic Dream, so it's bound to be a little weird. They made Detroit Beyond Human. They do a lot of very story-driven QTE kind of games. That's been their MO in the past. I don't know if that's what this is going to be. I actually don't think I would dislike that if it was done well.
I'm still holding out for a 1313 revival.
I think the closest you're probably going to get that is that Ubisoft is doing an open world Star Wars game.
Okay.
So we're going to get
could be good.
We're going to get Far Cry and Star Wars World.
Well, I wonder if they're going to try to finally reboot the KOTOR series, because I've heard some scuttlebutts about that, and the team that made...
So they're not rebooting, they're doing a remaster of KOTOR right now.
Yeah. But I think that's I think that may be a prelude to an eventual third release, and I only say that because the team that made Empire at War have been begged to make a sequel to it for a decade or so now.
Sure.
And they have kind of obliquely staying within their NDA, but outright saying it, that they are actively working on the sequel now. Like, they finally got the green light for it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times these game companies and Star Wars, even to some extent, because they kind of dropped Star Wars Squadron on us as a surprise.
Yes, that's true. And I actually thought that game was really, really good. I thoroughly enjoyed Star Wars Squadrons.
VR straight up gave me vertigo when I corkscrewed down onto a Star Destroyer in my A-Wing. That was crazy.
KOTOR 3 as an MMO.
Good.
I mean, it is an MMO. SWTOR, which is basically KOTOR 3, is an MMO. Yeah. I liked SWTOR.
I did too, until they screwed over their fan base.
I enjoyed the game quite a bit. I played it a lot through the first couple of expansions, and then I dropped it. It's still out. You can go play SWTOR right now. I've actually been half tempted to jump back in and just see what it's like.
There's even a Revan storyline.
Yeah.
Not to be spoilery, but there is one.
Yes, there is. Revan does return. I don't think that's spoilery, because that was like,
I mean, statute of limitations, and that's passed a long time ago.
For sure. I will play the KOTOR remaster just because I really enjoyed KOTOR. I'd really like to see a KOTOR 2 remaster, because KOTOR 2 was a freaking train wreck.
Yes,
one of my main
your character does still exist.
Mine
does. And I
Jessica, we can always go.
5 years.
That's my spouse in the chat. We can always go re-download SWTOR. It's free to play still. Yeah. I mean, I'm just excited that it's not all EA, and we're getting more Star Wars games. I would like to see some movement in that general direction, because we haven't gotten a lot. And you're right, they did surprise us with stuff. I think it's neat that SWTOR still exists. I think a lot of that stuff's really cool. Speaking of MMOs, there's a new WoW expansion. What expansion number is this for WoW? Do you even know?
Like 9? Something. I guess it kind of depends on what you count as expansion, because they had there were a few years there they were doing mini expansions, like the Isle of Keldanis and a couple other add-ons like that. They were pretty big add-ons, but they weren't full.
This game is almost
expansion.
18 years old.
Yeah, it's old. It's very old.
18 years old.
Well, and this one is supposed to be more traditional fantasy themed. Some people have compared it to trying to capture the D&D theme, which I can kind of see it.
Sure.
And supposedly they're bringing back a lot of the systems from classic WoW.
Sure.
Which I'm kind of thinking, it's a day late and a dollar short at this point.
I mean, now to be fair, WoW is apparently still the number one MMO on the planet. I mean, now just anecdotally, I know very few people who still actively play WoW a lot.
I have tried in the last year, mainly with Mallo and some of the other people that wanted to, and I kind of feel like it is a game from an era that no longer exists.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're going to have a hard time capturing new audience and retaining the audience they have over time because the audience is aging. They are moving on to different things, having kids, etc., and not being around as much. But I found it very difficult to still play that game, and this is coming from a guy that logged enormous amounts of hours in WoW back in up until Cataclysm.
Sure.
I was the stereotypical WoW nerd that basically got home from work and immediately got on WoW for years, and I tried to get back into it, and it's just honestly, it's incredibly boring to me now.
So, WoW, I tried a bunch of different times. I tried to get into it. I could never do it. Partially because visually, it was not that fascinating to me. I didn't really like the way that the style of visuals that they did for it. It was a very cartoony look for World of Warcraft, which was fine, but not for me. And then I didn't enjoy the way that they structured it, even in the early days, very much. It just wasn't fun for me at that time. I'm like, if there's anything that comes out of this stupid Microsoft expansion, and I was talking to somebody at the store about this yesterday, can you release a new game, Blizzard? Please? Anything new? New IP. Well, give me something. Give me StarCraft 3. While we're at it, I would like Titanfall 3, but we'll throw that to the other side. But I would like StarCraft 3. I would like anything else.
I would like to see them, because, Overwatch originally started as, I believe they actually called it Project Titan. I think that's what they called it. But Project Titan was what Overwatch eventually became, but it was originally intended to be a new MMO, set in a kind of a futuristic standpoint. And people thought at the time that meant they were making, like, World of StarCraft. But they pretty explicitly said early in that, no, it's not StarCraft. It's a new IP that we're making. And then I never really got a great explanation for why this MMO project eventually became Overwatch, which I'm not hating on it. I loved Overwatch. I'd probably still be playing if it weren't for all the nonsense that happened at Blizzard recently. But I would really like to see them do a new MMO that is not in the WoW style.
Yes. Yes. I'd like a Galaxy of StarCraft or whatever you want to call it. We know you can do an MMO on a planet-to-planet scale. It's been done. So it can be done, I guess
I'd even be happy for a Diablo MMO, because Diablo was always their more adult dark fantasy IP.
Warcraft 3 actually remastered. I thought I had heard an announcement about that. Not that they were going to try again, because I remember how angry everybody was.
Oh, the nerds are so mad. They're still mad about it.
Oh, yeah, but the Warcraft 3 Reforged. Yeah, it was. Yes, I would like to see them do that. Honestly, I'd like to see them go back to the roots and redo Warcraft 1 and 2. I played the crap out of Warcraft 1 and 2. I really loved those games.
Mm-hmm.
I said somehow Warcraft stays on the top of the leaderboard for MMOs. It's getting caught up with, though, a little bit. Final Fantasy XIV is really popular right now.
The one person... Well, technically right now I know 3 people who play it. But the one I was thinking of, he legitimately only plays it because MMOs are his favorite style of game.
Right.
And he has invested so much time in his character on WoW, he doesn't want to give it up. And he grumbles and complains about the expansions and stuff all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just over here like, well, if you hate it so much, why are you still playing it? It's like, because I've been playing it since 2008. So it's like, I imagine they have a lot of their current subscribers are people that are just stuck in that loop. They don't want to give it up, which I don't blame them. That's a lot of time to invest in a game. But I kind of wonder how long that they can ride that train.
See, I never understood, because like for example, I invested a crap load of time in SWTOR. I invested early, especially. I invested a lot of time in New World, not as much as my spouse, who dinged level capped long before I did. I still haven't actually done it because I don't have time. I don't have an issue and have never had an issue like leaving a game. Like when I'm like, I'm done with this now. Like it was fun while it lasted. Like I used to kind of have a thing where like, even with first person games, right? Like I kind of want to get a number of hours out of it equal to what I paid for it in dollars. Right? But honestly, as long as I'm breaking like movie numbers, like where if I go see a movie at the theater, it's $15 just for me. Right?
That's usually the equation I use.
Yep. So
pin it to movie prices.
3 movies or 4 movies is $60. That's 8 hours. If I can get at least 10 hours of entertainment out of something and it costs me $60 or $70, I'm pretty happy with the exchange of value there. You know, but I have never had an issue walking away, being like, all right, you know, it's just not fun anymore. The chat says that's a lot of time to invest in being unhappy.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's necessarily been unhappy with it. Like he doesn't like the expansions, but he still has a group of friends that he plays with, so it's still a social activity for him.
Yeah,
like he's clearly driving some level of enjoyment out of it, and for some people, that's enough. For me, I would prefer to do the social environment with my friends in a game we all liked.
Yeah,
but I can see it. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I can see why.
Which is something that we all kind of do. Like when New World came out, everybody kind of migrated over there for a little while. And for a couple of months, that was kind of the game du jour for our group of friends. And everybody played New World every day, right? And sometimes we'd switch it off and we'll play other stuff. But yeah, I'm kind of with you on that one where it's like, why not switch to a game that you all like together? Chad also pulls out MMOs had shrunk pre-pandemic. Human malware slowed the death of the market. I think it definitely helped them quite a bit. I don't necessarily think that MMOs were going to die completely.
Yeah. That was the point I was wanting to make, is MMOs are not going anywhere. There's going to be some MMO around forever. I mean, if you really stop and think about it, it has been a very long time since we got a good traditional RTS game, and the StarCraft community is still enormous. I mean, that's not going away.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the 99th most popular MMO on MMO population, which is Pathfinder Kingmaker, I mean, it's wobbly, but they average even 1,000 players a day. Or no, 20 players per day this month, averaging. Let's go back up. I mean, there's so many.
I mean, even a maybe possibly more poignant one is the MOBA genre. It was huge 5-6 years ago, and now you barely hear anything about it. But League of Legends and Dota 2 are still going pretty strong. I think even the Blizzard one, I can't remember the name of it, Heroes of the Storm. I think even it's still going pretty well.
Yep. I mean, SWTOR averages 100,000 players a day. According to this, it's still in the top 20. I would take Roblox out of the MMO list, but I suppose you can leave it there if you'd like to. Weird people. I think I'd just like WoW to die just because I'm like, you know what? You've had a good run. Maybe they're waiting for 20 years. Maybe that's what they want. They want WoW to last 20 years, and then they will kill it.
I mean, at this stage, I honestly wouldn't be really mad if they wanted to close down the original WoW servers and start over with WoW 2. Like, I would play that. At least a little bit.
Kind of like EverQuest did.
Yeah, I mean, and like Tip was saying, EverQuest is still around. RuneScape is still around.
Yep.
Like, there's going to be some level of MMO action, basically, as long as there's people playing games.
Yep. No, absolutely. And now while we're on MMOs, brought to you tonight by frustration with video games is apparently a rant about the New World Easter event by Grandpa Joe. Grandpa Joe, take it away.
I need you to look to your left and give your wife a sarcastic look for me.
Oh, she's not in the studio right now. She's just in the chat.
Well then, Jess, know that I'm giving you my monitor a sarcastic look. So, New World came out with this Easter event, and their Christmas event was pretty good. Like, it was a pretty standard event for an MMO.
That was fun.
Yeah, it didn't do anything new, but it was okay. It checked all the boxes. It was enjoyable.
We got some presents. We got to run around and battle some stuff. Yeah.
Then they did this garbage fire of an event that they pretty clear. Like, my thought of this matter is someone was like, maybe a couple weeks before Easter was like, oh shit, Easter's coming up. We should do something. Like, there was very clearly almost no thought attached to this because, in the Christmas one, you had to go there were like presents all over the world and you could find them and loot them and get tokens. Periodically there would be a world event where like a meteor would fly out of the sky and explode and sprinkle like little special sparkly mining nodes all over the place that you could pick up and then take back and turn in for tokens. If you got enough tokens, you could buy Christmas themed gear and just kind of like knickknacks and stuff for your house. Pretty standard MMO fare.
Yeah.
For this one, Easter, which I know they don't want to call it Easter because, they don't want to be exclusive to other people who are not Christian. They didn't do any of the normal Eastery kind of things. There were no hidden Easter eggs in the world, which, by the way, if you all know, and I'm sure you all do, Easter eggs is also the name for a funny little hidden thing in a game. So as a precedent for putting actual Easter eggs in the game, did not do that. Did not have any hidden things at all. No tokens. All they put in was they changed all of the rabbits in the world to a corrupted rabbit. And if you killed them, they would drop some loot. You could get 3 of one type of loot per day and 5 of another type of loot per day. But the big thing for the event was a fancy, very high capacity storage chest to go into your home. And based off of, the winter event, you would think they'd have some kind of like token system or some kind of way for you to earn the chest. Nope. It was a random drop with an extremely low drop chance.
Wait, it was just a random drop?
A random drop from the bunnies with an extremely low drop chance. They never actually published what the drop chance was, but some of the Reddit internet sleuths were saying that the drop rate's below 1%. So Jess said she got the chest. Jess and I of our friend group are the only two that have gotten the chest so far. Jess said she got hers in about 200 or so rabbit kills. Mine was 1,200. I ran around and massacred literally for days, for hours a day when I was just kind of bored not doing anything, killing rabbits trying to get this chest drop. What the hell kind of event is this where you just your big thing is reliant on random drops? It's aggravating and it's anti-fun.
Also, from what I understand, and I was shown a picture of it, I was told the bunny chest is also very ugly.
Yeah, it is pretty ugly.
And it looks stupid. So
it was just a huge bummer of an event, and like Amazon Games has already been hemorrhaging players on New World, and they really need to not do this.
So I think of MMOs almost like I think of the advice I give to somebody who they're like, I want to start a miniature game. Great. Do you have 5 years worth of releases planned? No? Then don't bother. Because you're screwed. You almost have to walk into an MMO, right? And have 2 to 3 years worth of releases, like plotted out. And then you need to take your timeline for releases and you need to compress it. Because the time you think it's going to take the crazy people to get through your endgame content 10 times is half what you think it is. Okay?
Yep.
I seriously think that every MMO maker think it's going to take gamers much longer to get through all the endgame content on an initial release than it actually does. This was the mistake that SWTOR made. They did
WoW's
not
made that mistake too.
What's that?
WoW has made that mistake multiple times.
They
I distinctly remember when Wrath of the Lich King came out, I was seeing people at the new level cap within 24 hours.
Okay. You must presume that there are going to be people who are going to just burn through this. And here's the thing. That's your hardcore player base, right? Here's the thing. Casual normies don't play MMOs.
Filthy casuals.
They just don't. Okay? They don't. Playing an MMO is fun. And like you, Joe, like I think of it as like a social thingy, right? Playing New World for me is just something I can do while I'm chatting with my friends and doing stuff. But everybody who's ever played an MMO long term knows that there's also just grindy crap you have to do, right? I had a quest where I was supposed to get a particular type of fish, right, in New World, right? And I spent numerous hours wandering from spot to spot that was supposed to have this fish and casting a line and reeling it in and casting a line and reeling it in. Because that's what you do, okay? It was kind of like the complaints when Destiny first came out. And all these first-person shooter people were like, what is this? I'm like, welcome to the grind, fool. Right? Like, that's what an MMO is. And again, it's fine. But MMO makers...
isn't, though.
It is. It's in every MMO.
Yes, it's in every MMO. But I have literally never met... And maybe I have, and they just haven't talked about it. But I have never met anyone that has ever actually enjoyed the MMO grind. It's just something you do to get through it. But no one's ever been like, haha, I'm going to log on tonight and farm 1,000 fucking raptors because none of them have heads.
I have known these people. I have never known these people who are like, yeah.
The grind is the filler that they put in to try to extend the length of the game.
Which still never extends the length of the game past when your crazy hardcores are going to have this done. Look, and you can get away with a lot with in-game events and special stuff and neat things, right? But not when you phone it in, right? Again, like you said, Joe, the Christmas one was fun, like, and it fit, and there was the trees, and you got the gifts.
Yeah, they added like whole like winter villages, like they were special to the map. They even made a new character and voice acted him, and like it was fun.
Yeah, you can't phone it in, and especially since. Do we have any word on... I know we've seen a lot of rumors, and I've seen some stuff where people have gone to the source code, but do we have any word on an expansion?
Supposed to be one coming within the year, I believe, but other than that, I don't think they really said anything. We do know that they're going to, because they've already stated that they're going to expand the map, and you can, if you scroll to the edges of the map, you can see where the roads go off into the other areas.
Mm-hmm.
So they're very clearly planning something, but I kind of think that they got a little derailed in the first 6 months of the game, which is basically the entire life of the game at this point, with fixing the botched launch. And I think that has really slowed down a lot of things. They've teased that they've trickled some small stuff out here and there. Like they just put in a new dungeon like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So they are trickling out content, but like a major actual like formal expansion, I don't think they've really said much about.
They need something pretty soon.
Yeah, they do.
Like quick, fast, in a hurry. Because, you know, I don't think New World's going to go away. I don't think it's going to...
I don't think it is either.
I don't think it's going to die.
Ace and I were having a conversation about that yesterday, or the day before yesterday, actually, that, you know, we're all at in-game content.
Yep.
And we have not completed all the dungeons yet, because there's some that we're just not geared enough for yet. But the problem is when we don't have our group of friends online, there's really not much for us to do right now.
Yes.
we can do PvP in the Outpost Rush. We can do World PvP. But generally speaking, most of what I do whenever I'm playing on a non-weekend night is I'm just farming, gathering, running in circles, jumping off of things, trying to see how far I can fall before I die. You know, the standard WoW at that point was the standard running in circles in Ironforge or Undercity.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the stage they're at. And if they don't get something going soon, because they don't even have, like, their Outpost Rush only has one map.
Yes.
They don't, so
and that was
the same
broken.
Every time.
That was broken for a good long while.
They did a lot of work and fixed it, and actually increased the rewards for playing it to try to entice players.
And part of what was broken about it, as I recall, because again, it's been a couple months since I've had a chance to play, was the fact that, like, when you signed up for the war, right? If you went,
Outpost Rush is different.
Okay, because like I was thinking about the war stuff, and like if you didn't sign up at and you couldn't get into it if you weren't high enough level or geared in a certain way.
That's still the case.
Yeah.
You get a little bit more activity on it now just because there's not as many people flocking to join wars or invasions like that anymore. Mm-hmm. So there's usually less people signing up nowadays. But Outpost Rush is their, like, specifically catered PvP, kind of like the WoW Battlegrounds.
Oh, yeah.
Where it, like, takes you into a whole separate queue and you jump in there. But it's just one map. So I kind of feel like there's a lot of softball options that they could throw at the game right now to try to give people more stuff to do, which again they did. They gave us the new dungeon and a new weapon within the last month. So they are trickling some things out, but I think the trickle is not going to suffice for much longer.
Yeah. I said do something. Do something. I thought the game was neat, and I think that it's, again,
got the bones.
Visually, it's the style. It's a style that I really enjoyed looking at. Gameplay wise, it was fine. There's some stuff that we could go get into the weeds with, but I'd be really nitpicking. It's how some of the weapons interact and how they function. I just was like, meh. Like muskets, especially initially. I was like, it's such a neat idea, and I fucking hate you. But again, overall, it was a fine game. I really would like to see. I thought they had a chance to really do something. Again,
yeah.
I am a big fan of innovation and people who are at the top getting knocked down a peg, right? Because I actually think it's good for them, right? I want to see somebody come in and take WoW down to number 5. Okay, don't make WoW go away, but make WoW go to number 5.
I really thought New World and had a chance to do that. If only because, and Mallo would probably be the better person to talk about this one, but they have the backing of Amazon. I think I'm pretty sure it's the largest company on the planet now. Not the richest, because I think that's still Apple, but I think they're the largest company on the planet now. I think they finally beat out Walmart. But they have the backing of arguably one of the biggest companies, wealthiest companies on the planet. They could potentially throw a budget at their game studio that none others have access to, outside of maybe Disney. But
Amazon is still number 2.
Is it?
By number of employees. By market cap. I can't even see. Apple. They're number 5. They're number 5 by market cap. So, I mean, yes, they are one of the largest companies on the planet. There's no reason for them to not. They have everything behind them.
Well, and like
Game
Studios is one of the few areas where I legitimately think throwing money at the problem can solve it.
Yes. Now, I think part of the problem is before New World, they hadn't really had. They'd really messed up some stuff with their game studios before. Right?
I can't even remember the name of that game that came out before New World.
When Blizzard came out with World of Warcraft, they had 2 very successful IPs. They had Warcraft and they had StarCraft. Actually, they had 3. They had Diablo, right? So when they come out with WoW as a concept, as an MMO, they're coming in with a lot of brand goodwill for their games, right? Amazon, yeah, I mean, I trust them to get me a USB splitter by tomorrow, but before this, they weren't known to be a gaming company, right?
No.
And the chat's got it too. Hasn't Amazon got a long tortured history of horribly destroying games? Kinda, yeah. Amazon Game Studios has not had a good history with games. So I think part of the reason why they didn't get the level of adoption they wanted and why they're kind of messing this up is because they don't have the brand cachet for video games specifically that a company like Blizzard does.
I think the industry is very accepting of new studios because, like, Valheim Studio, I forget who it was that did them, but there's that is one of the, like, true, dreams that you always hear about in school and growing up that actually can happen in video games. You can go from rags to riches in the video game market. It's happened hundreds of times. Even Blizzard did that. I don't think that Amazon being new to the market was necessarily a problem for them, but it does put the onus on them making a good first impression. Because especially in the gaming industry, nerds are angry people, and if you don't make a good impression, they're gonna remember that. And as of right now, I have to say Amazon has not made a fantastic impression because, like I was saying, they had that hero shooter MOBA hybrid game that they tried to come out with about a year ago. I can't even remember the name of it. That was just terrible.
Yep.
And they ended up pulling the plug on that like 6 months in. And then New World started off on a strong foot because they were at like 900,000. Like, they were seriously threatening a lot of other games on the market. They were in the top 3 on Steam for several months, and then they just kind of dropped the ball. I hear Lost Ark has gotten a better reception, but that also isn't entirely a fair comparison because Lost Ark has been out in Korea for, I think, 3 years now. So it's not a new game. It's just a new to the U.S. market game. So I think I wouldn't expect Amazon to get everything right in the first couple forays, but I think they definitely fell to the time-old victim of rushing a game out to satisfy some metrics that they have internally. I think New World needed maybe another 6 months to a year of baking before they really went live with it.
I mean, I think they could have probably done a longer beta.
Yeah.
And let it cook for probably another 3 months. I'm still back to if you walk into an MMO as a corporation and don't have a 5-year release plan, I don't know what you're doing. Like, you can't start that after the game's out, which feels to me like something Amazon would do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And
I wouldn't even necessarily, there's not room for a redemption arc too, because Hello Games came out with No Man's Sky and was pretty universally hated, and they ducked their heads and they did their work, and now they are starting to regain a lot of credibility and are making a lot of people very happy.
That's another one of those games I need to dig back into is No Man's Sky. You're right.
So I mean, there is room in the market for it, and I'm still kind of waiting to see if CD Projekt Red can do the same with 2077.
That's another one I'm surprised we have not heard anything about. My understanding, and I haven't dug back in, I actually just repatched about a week ago. My understanding from talking to on the other side CDPR, yep, see, chat's got it too. My understanding is now it's basically bug free, right? Like, it is a fully functional, like, everything's fine. Again, I didn't have a whole lot of huge issues the first time I played through it right after launch, but I also have a rig that was designed to handle that kind of game.
I didn't have a lot. I didn't have any game breaking bugs.
Yeah, and it was nothing I wouldn't expect out of a Bethesda title.
But it was. I think my biggest issue with 2077 was just it didn't. it didn't live up to the hype because they were hyping it up to be like, some kind of like AAA super awesome title that's going to redefine the genre, and it really just kind of felt like a cheap clone of some things.
I think that so my biggest complaint about Cyberpunk 2077 specifically, and maybe we need to go back and do like a retrospective episode, because I think it's been out for a little over a year now. My biggest episode with 77 was that it was just, there is like you say, the bones, right? Just under the surface of that game is a phenomenal game.
Yeah.
That's another one I think they needed to let cook for probably about another 6 months. And I also think that they made 3 key mistakes in the way the game presents itself and its world. And again, that's why I say it's so close. And to me, that's actually the most disappointing part, because visually it's beautiful. It looks really cool. The world is awesome. If you go and really explore that city, it's massive.
Oh,
right? Yeah. The map is huge. There's an entire forest under a bunch of buildings.
My complaint with it was never that the world was bad, with an asterisk on that. The environment that you're in, the effects makes you kind of feel like it's a city in some respects, and I'm talking purely environmental.
Yeah.
Where I felt like it really felt short was the way the people that populate the city interact with the city felt very stiff and robotic. I did not get the same level of immersion in that game that I did in games like even GTA does a much better living city simulation than Cyberpunk did.
In some ways, yeah. I sometimes feel like GTA feels empty.
Yeah, it does. But they have the bones of a beautiful world. Mm-hmm. But the inhabitants, I think they need to do some polishing work on it. And that may not have been a huge priority for them in the game development, because 90% of the time you're going to be just whizzing past them in some vehicle or another anyway. But I kind of felt like the city did not really feel like it was populated, even though there was people around you all the time.
So apparently, and I'm seeing some news articles updated about a week ago, and apparently Cyberpunk 2077's first expansion is slated to be released in 2023. That's what they said during an earnings call the other day.
Wow, that's really late.
It is far from finished. CD Projekt Red has previously said that Cyberpunk 2077 will have more DLCs than The Witcher 3. CD Projekt Red does that, though. Their games tend to have long cycles because they don't put out that many games.
As long as they keep improving, I think one thing they can do to keep goodwill in the interim is keep updating the main game with some of the content that they had promised that didn't make it in.
Yeah.
For example, the Metro Rail that's in it. The Metro Rail is there, you can see it, but you can't interact with it. Do stuff like that. Just put stuff in it to make it feel more like a living world rather than just something in. I feel like that's the way they can keep some goodwill long enough to get an expansion out.
Yeah. Oh no, for sure. I will be curious to see what they continue to do with it. Again, I kind of want to go back and I actually patched it because I wanted to go back and dig in on one of my further playthroughs. But take that for what it's worth. CDPR also has good old games to work on. That's true. CDPR has a bunch of stuff that they're working on, but they don't. Again, they tend to do long release cycles. I'm looking at the earnings call stuff, and they're still working on stuff for Witcher 3. More support for Witcher 3. More shit. So take that for what it's worth. That basically runs us out of topics tonight. I hope you all had a good time. Chat, thanks for hanging out with us. If you're watching us on the YouTubes, thank you for watching all the way through the video. Tomorrow night we will be at Gamer7 in Seattle doing more living campaign for Identico. We'll be back on Monday with the second to last episode of Season 1 before we go on break for Chaos Incorporated. So stay tuned for that. They finally managed to get themselves out of one mess. So we will see where they go from here before the season finale. Joe, thank you for joining me tonight.
Yeah, no problem.
And we will be back with another episode of Identico After Dark next week. Thank you to all of our followers and our subscribers. You really help us keep this going and let us keep doing the stuff that we love. Everybody have a good night. Stay weird, as Mel would say. Drink your water. Stay safe, and have a great night.
Goodbye.
Bye.